Hey guys, People Close Gamers back to do something a little bit different. I'm not doing a reaction here. I'm kind of making my first, I guess, list video, kind of like my partner Dylan does here with his Yu-Gi-Oh videos on the channel. And had this idea for a while, and then I decided, I ain't gonna do it. And then I was kind of inspired when I watched the Road to Civil War stream that Superhero News did, and I'll put their link to their channel down below. A bunch of great guys do a lot of great content, and I was like, you know what, I am gonna do this and give my thoughts. And hopefully, the idea of this video is to give my list, ranking the movies, and kind of giving a score, kind of giving ranking my after credit scenes for the movies really quickly. And then maybe to have, I could do more in-depth videos if you guys like this, but the idea is for you guys to comment below, give me your lists, your ideas, what you like, what you didn't like. Obviously, be respectful to me and everyone else in the comments, and just let's have a nice, great discussion on, our favorite MCU movies here. So without further ado, I am going to start in the order of the way they were released. So we'll start in Phase 1 with Iron Man. Comes out in 2008, directed by Jon Favreau, and obviously this is the movie that started it all. It was an absolutely great movie for me. It had great comedy and humor, dark humor, and also was a gritty film of, Tony Stark getting captured by terrorists, which seemingly were, I think, members of the Ten Rings organization. Then his partner and was his dad's friend, Obadiah Stane, ends up being a guy that's funding them, kills all the terrorists, and he becomes the Ironmonger that Tony fights. And a lot of people had criticism of this movie of just, oh, it's Tony, and now it's a, in his Iron Man suit, and then a bigger Iron Man and better Iron Man. But still, it was great fight scenes. It was a great dynamic between Robert Downey Jr., kind of his return to stardom, and Jeff Bridges. We also see Gwyneth Paltrow in this movie as Pepper Potts. She plays a great job there. And we see Terrence Howard playing Rhodey. And he did a great job, even though this is the only movie he will be in. He did a good job. He captured the character. They gave hints of like, oh, next time with the whole War Machine thing. I really, really enjoyed this movie. It's still one of my favorites. The classic scene of him launching the missile at the tank and walking away. There's so many great moments. Even Jon Favreau, the director, playing Happy Hogan in the Iron Man series. It's a great film. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a movie that started the entire MCU as you know it, and it's definitely still a classic to this day. So with Iron Man, the first one coming out in 2008, I am giving this a 9 out of 10. I think it's that good. Transitioning into the second movie that came out in 2010, the second movie of Phase 1 and in the MCU, it is The Incredible Hulk. Obviously, the big thing to take away from this movie is it's Edward Norton playing Bruce Banner in the Hulk, not Mark Ruffalo that we've known for the rest of the movies. Also, the Hulk obviously looks different in this movie than he does because they gave him a redesign for the Avengers and so on and so forth. I did like this movie. I do have problems with kind of the story. It kind of goes up and down, and there's a little bit of like, how did Betty then discover that he's in the back of like a coffee cafe shop? And there's weird things that don't make sense. And then they're like up in the mountains. He takes her in the rain and he screams. And as the Hulk, like there is some weird stuff, but still at the core of this, Edward Norton, I think, did capture a version of Bruce Banner. I think he did a great job there. William Hurt, obviously, who we're going to see Captain America Civil War finally returning, I think did a great job as Thunderbolt Ross, kind of playing that side of hunting the Hulk and hunting Bruce Banner because he thinks he's a monster, but also trying to repair that relationship with his daughter, but damaging it at the same time because he's hunting, obviously, her boyfriend. I thought Liv Tyler played a great Betty Ross. They had a great relationship. You see the struggles of the Hulk, but you see the struggles of Bruce Banner, how he can't even have sex with her because his heart rate goes too high up, and that could, put him at risk of becoming the Hulk or something more. So I like seeing those scenes of struggle. You even get a tease of the leader here, and obviously the Abomination, Blonsky in this movie, I think is great. I think the progression they have with him was really cool. For me, one of the best fights in the MCU. Maybe I'll do, if you guys like this, I'll do a top 10 fights in the MCU after this, but one of the best fights in the MCU, the Hulk coming down from the helicopter, he breaks out of the, he thinks he's not going to change, breaks out of the road, he fights the Abomination, and the Abomination is stronger than him, he's bigger than him, but that rage inside of the Hulk, able to stop the Abomination, the threat of Betty being in trouble, he's able to use the Thunderclap. Great fight. Really, really did like those parts of the movie. There was other parts that dragged, and like Ty Burrell playing the sort of guy that Betty went out with before Bruce came back, and there was other weird elements of this movie that didn't make sense. That's why it lands a 6 out of 10 for me. It's definitely something worth checking out. It's way better than Ang Lee's 2003 Hulk, but still, for me, it's still not a great story, so that's why it's getting a 6 out of 10. Moving on to Iron Man 2. This came out in 2010. This movie is obviously the sequel to the first Iron Man movie, and it was highly anticipated. And for me, it misses the mark. It's not a great movie. It has the whole story of kind of Tony dealing with the repercussions of saying I am Iron Man at the end of Iron Man, and dealing with Justin Hammer and all the government that wants a suit and not giving it. Also, the suit, the arc reactor, is killing him, and he's trying to find so many ways to save himself. He can't, and then all of a sudden, Black Widow, is somehow, Scarlett Johansson plays the character great, but she's somehow just spoon-fed into this movie, in my opinion, just because we wanted to have some kind of setup for the Avengers, and I don't like the way it meshed with the movie. I don't like kind of the way she was used. Yes, she had a great fight scene in the movie, but it still wasn't, I wasn't a fan of how any of it was used at all. Obviously, the main villain of this movie is Whiplash. Ivan Vanko is in this. He has a good idea of saying, trying to show the world to make God bleed, but in the end, kind of, in the last act, he gets a big Iron Man suit with whips on them. And it wasn't even a good, for me, choreographed fight scene. That or Rhodey, played obviously now by Don Cheadle, and I thought he did a great job. The two of them, him back to back in the park doing all that stuff, didn't work for me. Don Cheadle, like I said, did work for me. Kind of him coming in when he came in before the congressional hearing when Tony was, getting berated basically over give up your suit. And he comes in and he's like, oh, Rhodey, I didn't expect you to be here. I'm here. I'm done. It's over with. And I was kind of, not only for the movie, but for the audience, I really did like those elements of the movie. But for me, the villain really didn't work. And that's, nothing against Mickey Rourke. Just, they didn't give him really much to do. It was kind of a poor backstory. Then all of a sudden, Fury help him and Widow help him kind of subside the effects of the disease that is killing him from the arc reactor. And then all of a sudden, based on a model that his dad made over the Stark Expo, he's able to create a new element in seems like no time at all. It didn't work for me. Did not like the movie. Obviously, there's always redeeming elements, and there's some funny scenes in this movie. Just overall, not, just seeing, Tony sort of die, and then all of a sudden it's rushed that he saves Pepper, and then they're a love interest again, where it was sort of built up over the two movies, but it was a little bit rushed and weird for me. I didn't like that stuff. I like when Tony's being Tony and like having his time, really being himself and only caring about himself and at the expo and stuff like that. And for me, this movie did not work. That is why I rated this at a 5 out of 10. For the next movie, which after Iron Man 2 was Thor, and came out in 2011. This first movie was kind of a risk for Marvel. They were not sure that they wanted to make this movie. It was, even though the Hulk and stuff is not believable, but the Hulk and Iron Man were kind of more known characters, I would say, than Thor, even though they weren't A-listers. But it was kind of, Iron Man in a suit, or maybe Hulk in a science experiment that happens to him. How were they going to explain to audiences that Thor was basically, he is a god from another world, there's all these other worlds, and I think they did a great job in explaining that and saying it's basically science that you just don't understand at this point, and introducing us to the world of Asgard, which actually looks surprisingly really good with the visual effects. I really did enjoy it. And then Chris Hemsworth was born to play this character. I mean, maybe he hasn't had success outside the MCU, but man, he looks like him. He got the mannerism, the acting chops of Thor. He nails it. And the big thing about Thor, this movie, is the acting performances. They're great. Whether it's Anthony Hopkins playing a great role as Odin or Thor, or Tom Hiddleston's Loki is perfect. That scene, one of my favorite scenes in the whole MCU, is when he figures out that he's actually a frost giant. And that conversation he has with Odin in there, I'm just another stolen relic, and just, I'm the monster that mothers tell their children at night about. Like, absolutely great, fantastic acting through this movie. The weaker points of this movie are kind of in its villains, where it's sort of Loki, but he's playing Laffy, who's, trying to prove himself to his father, but also the Destroyer's in it, in this small, kind of cheap-budgeted Western New Mexico town that Thor ends up, after he gets banished, going down to. That was the weaker parts of this movie. Surprisingly, though, meeting Natalie Portman, as Jane Foster, and Darcy and Kat Dennings, and Skarsgård as Dr. Eric Selvig, actually worked, and seeing Thor become humbled and become the hero, and a great moment of him getting back his gear and then fighting and destroying, the destroyer, and then, Jane saying, "This is how you look all the time?" Yeah, pretty much. And those were actually really good moments that work. Even name dropping Donald Blake, kind of his alter ego in this. Those moments worked for me. It was just kind of the villains and some of the overarching structure of what Loki was doing. Yeah, he gave a great performance, Tom Hiddleston, but there was some questionable things where it was like, all right, I'm not a huge fan of jumping back and forth between these different worlds and everything else, where it kind of sometimes felt like a missed, opportunity and a disconnected story. And yes, Loki and Thor have a great conversation just before they fight, and there's great moments of Thor putting down the hammer on Loki. But still, the movie was good, but it does lack in some regard. But I'm still going to rate it really well and give it a 7 out of 10. Moving on to the next movie there in 2011 is Captain America: The First Avenger. This is a period piece for Marvel, which was very interesting that they had concerns over would it connect with audiences? Are people tired of war films? And hey, this movie did great. It's a great film. Chris Evans playing his second kind of superhero in his life after playing the Human Torch in the Fantastic Four movies, and he nails Captain America. Even the weird, you think it's going to be weird CGI of his head on a small body, it all works. You get to enjoy the journey of Steve Rogers, getting beaten up in an alleyway and going, hey, I can do this all day, and having that spirit that Dr. Erskine picks out. Having the spirit of before he gets the serum, he's able to jump on a dummy grenade that, Colonel Phillips, Tommy Lee Jones' character, puts down, and he's willing to make those sacrifices. You show that he was Cap before even the serum. It was more than just, him becoming a science experiment, and him getting those powers, and being able to save Bucky and go after Hydra. I think Hugo Weaving plays a great Red Skull that I know he didn't really like it, but I do hope he comes back in future movies. And I think it was a great job kind of having the lore of the Tesseract, of him going after, hearing all these stories. He has it. Toby Jones plays a great second villain in the sense of Armin Zola. I like their dynamic. I like the scenes and the fighting scenes in these movies of kind of Steve struggling to figure out his powers of Captain America, like when he runs through the glass window when he first gets the powers after Dr. Erskine was murdered, and seeing his relationship with Bucky all the way up until Bucky's death, which, we knew would come back later. For many people, that was a shocking scene, great emotion. Haley Atwell plays a great Peggy Carter in this, and one of the best scenes in the MCU. Him going down, crashing the ship to save people in New York and everything else, and them talking about a dance and everything else, and then, the radio cuts out, and her just going, Steve, Steve, and things like that. And if you watch Agent Carter, it means even more how much that affected her. It was a great movie, great period piece, great score, great costumes, and great acting. This is an 8 out of 10 for me. And then the final movie here in the MCU is in 2012, kind of the creme de la creme. It's Marvel's The Avengers. This is a fantastic film. It's absolutely amazing. It's dreams come true for me and many other people of seeing all these characters on screen. You got all the standalone movies, and besides a weak opening, all those standalone movies ended up to a great product. Loki's introduced in Thor, so we kind of just go right into him. Excellent acting all through the board. Loved Loki in this movie. Loved the scenes of Tony meeting Bruce and Tony meeting Cap and how they're at odds, and he talks about, hey, that's the guy my father never shut up about. They should have probably left him on ice, and you knew those two wouldn't agree together. And seeing all the characters come together, seeing Mark Ruffalo fitting right into Bruce like nothing ever happened, and the redesign of Hulk, and it all looks great. And the team just being able to work inside S.H.I.E.L.D., but also disagreeing with them and having the fight scenes that kind of like Loki causes that whole helicarrier thing, but seeing them all use their skills, even Iron Man repairing a helicarrier, absolutely amazing. Even seeing the helicarrier in general was amazing, that you would never think, I never thought you would see on screen. Absolutely awesome. And then I was worried that there wasn't going to be enough character time for every character. They do that. Maybe Hawkeye's a little lacking, but still they redeemed him in the other movies. But I still loved, Jeremy Renner playing the character. I think everyone did a great job. Seeing Cap lead the team, and then what I was also worried about was that we wouldn't get a great fight scene at the end. And it ended up being a 15-20 minute fight scene in the Battle of New York. Absolutely awesome. I loved the movie. To me, it's one of the great movies. It's almost a masterpiece. It's a 9.6 out of 10 for me for Marvel's The Avengers. Alright guys, so that's my thoughts there on the MCU Phase 1 here on this road to Civil War. And I'm going to start right away here with Phase 2. So moving into Phase 2, Iron Man 3 is the first movie. It came out here in 2013, directed by Shane Black. And this is kind of a movie that benefited, I would say, off of the Avengers' success. It kind of rode the wave. It got $1 billion, over $1 billion this movie made worldwide at the box office. And it was, like I said, just the hype of the Avengers movie. And yes, this movie does have problems in my opinion, but it's still a solid movie. You get the Mandarin in this movie, who is not really the Mandarin. That ends up being a problem there. But still, the main crux of this movie that they should have done even more is Tony. Him dealing with the after effects of seeing aliens and gods and all this stuff and having basically PTSD. And I wish they even explored it more, but I really did like what they did with it. And him struggling that, he ends up meeting up with a kid that ends up being in Jurassic World. But he ends up doing a great job, great work with the kid. They have some kind of banner where, yeah, he's typical Tony, a little bit of a dick, but he also cares about the kid, and he ends up buying him all this stuff here. What I didn't like about the movie in some of the regards is you have Aldrich Killian, right? So he's not really what the Extremis is in the comic books. He ends up being able to breathe fire and all this other shit. And he has this plan really just because he's mad about Tony for standing him up like 20 years ago. He props up the Mandarin, one of the great villains in Marvel villains, one of the great Iron Man villains, probably the Iron Man villain, who has, yes, an alien background and blah, 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 blah. So you remake him into kind of this terrorist kind of figure like an Osama bin Laden. Awesome. And then it turns out that, you know, Ben Kingsley being this great actor ends up just being this guy, Trevor, who's this soccer, you know, fan kind of drunk loser that is just been propped up as the Mandarin as just kind of a shadow for Aldrich Killian. Kind of stupid. Didn't really work. Don Cheadle back in this movie. He worked great. There's a lot of funny scenes in this movie, a lot of tense action, a lot of time of Tony out of the suit, which I did not mind. It goes with the struggles of the PTSD, with him, you know, obsessively making armor upon armor and improvement upon improvement. Like, you know, the armor being able to, you know, that's where he discovers it to, like, grab to him, you know, by just, you know, being able to have, kind of like, not Extremis, but kind of like a link to him that he could call it to him, and it ends up being huge. And also he kills a lot of people in this movie, but there is still problems with this movie. I remember sitting and watching the Mandarin turn, did not like it at all, but I did like, again, the grittiness, getting back to it from Iron Man 1 that did not exist in Iron Man 2. I did like the grittiness of this movie, seeing Tony struggle with the after effects. We typically don't see heroes struggle with in the movies with things that they go through. I really did enjoy that. I overall did like the story. I did have problems with it, but it still has some good fight scenes. Yeah, Tony blows up his suits, but he wanted to experience life outside of Iron Man after he got the arc reactor and all the shrapnel removed from his chest. I thought that was good progression for the character. It ended up being good for him going forward, and I do like this movie. I really do. So I gave this movie a 7 out of 10. I still think it's a solid movie, but it does have its problems. Then moving on to the next film in the Phase 2 universe for the MCU is Thor: The Dark World, which also came out in 2013. This is a pretty bad movie in my opinion. I do not like this movie. Old movies or TV episodes, as I always say, have redeeming qualities. And there is some moments in this movie, but overall, they wasted a great actor in Christopher Eccleston playing a really good villain in Malekith the Accursed. They gave him basically nothing to do at all. They kind of killed Frida, which was a great, awesome scene of her funeral, but they kind of give us a little bit of a taste of her and Loki as he's in prison just after the Avengers there, and then they kill her off, and we don't even get to explore that relationship a little bit more. And there is problems in this movie with just pacing, with up and down stories, with Thor betraying basically or not being worthy of Asgard again, and like just the replacing of actors in this movie. One of the Warriors 3, I think it was it wasn't Volstagg, but it was one of them, ended up getting replaced, and I bet no one even noticed. I didn't even notice with the film because these characters, the Warriors 3 and Sif, are not fleshed out enough. You have these great actors like Jamie Alexander not fleshed out at all. We spent way too much time on Earth, following stupid plot lines of Skarsgård playing Dr. Eric Selvig in a mental institution, running around naked. Kind of Darcy, kind of wearing thin at this point for me with her jokes, and now she has an assistant. And then Jane, obviously being pissed off at Thor, but then somehow sort of ends up in another reality and finds the ether, one of the reality gems, which of course is what Malekith wanted, which of course was the same time that the conversions, all the worlds were aligning, even though it happens every 5,000 years. It just didn't work for me. Fight scenes didn't really work for me. Yeah, they pop back and forth between worlds, but still, overall, it wasn't really, they didn't really think of it. It wasn't, too much. It wasn't really that creative. Didn't like it. Yeah, you have cool scenes that I like of Odin saying, Thor going, how many of us have to die to stop them? And Odin going, as many as needed. Almost that he's so similar to Malekith that Malekith maybe is not bad. He just has another cause of trying for him to make the worlds and his image. Those were things I liked. They just didn't explore on that, didn't expand on that. And overall, this is a weak film where most of the comedy doesn't land. I would advise really not checking it out. If unless you love all these movies and like me and you want to watch them all, sure. But if you're just a casual fan, avoid this movie. Don't check it out. I give it a 8 out of 10. It is not worth seeing. Don't see it. Then the next movie moving on into the list is Captain America the Winter Soldier. It came out in 2014, directed by the Russo brothers. And boy, oh boy, from the last movie, do we have a change. Movies are tough. Anything is tough to be perfect, to be a masterpiece. This is as close to a masterpiece as you can get, in my opinion. It's an absolutely fantastic film of exploring brotherhood, of friendship, of Bucky being played by the Winter Soldier, Sebastian Stan back, kind of Cap dealing with seeing him again. Excellent fight scenes of hand-to-hand combat. Great stuff. Absolutely great. It was creative. It was entertaining and tense. Absolutely fantastic. Exploring Cap's powers that are kind of undefined, but seeing his powers of his shield throwing and being able to jump out of planes with no parachute and fighting Batroc the Leaper, played by George St. Pierre. All great scenes. One great thing about this movie, among the many, is Scarlett Johansson is used in this movie. Black Widow fits. Unlike Iron Man 2, where I didn't like it, it fits in this movie. They have an interesting dynamic where he doesn't trust her at first, and then they kind of get to know each other more, and he saves her life, and she backs him up and things like that. And they grow the relationship. We also introduced Anthony Mackie's character, Sam Wilson, as the Falcon in this movie. He fit. It worked. I believe that the two actors had chemistry right away. Really like what they did. Nick Fury in this movie was great. You think he's dead, and then he comes back. Maria Hill worked in this movie. Agent Carter is in this movie. And even Alexander Pierce, played by Robert Redford. Robert Redford's in an MCU movie. Absolutely amazing. I think he's one of the best villains in the MCU. I think he plays great. And then obviously the huge shocking reveal of Toby Jones back as Amenzola, and he reveals that Hydra has been inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. all of this time. I remember watching that for the first time. Absolutely mind-blowing that it happened. Fantastic movie. So much drama, so many emotional scenes of, him saying, Buck, please don't make me do this when they're up on the catwalk, and he doesn't want to fight him, but he knows he has to save lives and stop all these helicarriers from killing millions of people. And then just saying, hey, at the end of it, after it's all done, after Bucky tried to kill him, I'm not going to fight you, you're my friend. And, then Bucky going, you're my mission, and go, hey, finish it. I'm with you to the end of the line. Call back to how he was just after Steve, mom died. Absolutely fantastic. Great to see Cap trying to adjust to the modern world and how he's struggling with all the secrecy and the spy stuff after he joined S.H.I.E.L.D. Absolutely fantastic political spy thriller. If you have not checked out any movies in the MCU, this is the movie you need to check out. It is fantastic. It's less of a superhero story and more of a action political spy thriller with just happen to be starring a guy that has some superhuman abilities. But this is not a classic superhero story at all. It's fantastic. It's emotional. It's everything you want in a film, and that's why I give it a 9.8 out of 10. Check it out. Amazing. Then going into the final 3 movies here of Phase 2 and the final movies of the MCU that we've seen so far. Guardians of the Galaxy came out in 2014. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy. Read tons of comics of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Love them. Can't wait to see Mantis in the sequel and everything else. But I was one of those people that admitted that I don't think this is going to work on the big screen. Especially, I don't think it's going to be able to sell tickets, even if it's good. You have a talking raccoon and a talking tree in it. You have Vin Diesel cast as Groot, and he says basically 3 words in the entire movie, the same 3 words, "I am Groot," and it worked. It worked. It was hilarious. It was a space opera. Maybe, you know, not to say it's on the level of Star Wars, but it was still absolutely amazing to see these band of misfits, these criminals come together, form as a team. You see that they're not your typical heroes. You don't think any of this is going to work. You bring in Dave Bautista, an ex-wrestler, as Drax the Destroyer, and yep, it works. Everything works in this movie. For me, even I thought Ronan the Accuser was great in this movie, played by Lee Pace. Karen Gillan playing Nebula in this movie, shaving her head for this role, fantastic. She was the perfect amount of badass, but also meanness to her character. Loved her there. And then finally, one of the huge moments of the movie for me was I got out of my seat when you finally see Josh Brolin as Thanos on screen, having lines of dialogue, talking to Ronan just after he's, killed the other. Amazing, 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 amazing stuff. Loved it. The comedy in this, I still laugh to this day of when, Ronan's giving that speech there on Nova, and then bang, Chris Pratt playing Star-Lord just breaks out in song and dance. It's a great scene there. It's got one of the best scenes in the MCU, and one of the most emotional moments for me is when he's holding the stone, and it calls back to his mom who died at the end of the movie saying, "Peter, take my hand," and that gets me every time. I absolutely love that scene. You have those moments, but you laugh your ass off in this movie. You understand why these criminals want to protect a planet that any of them are from, and they even comment on that. And they show it. You believe it. You believe that they would come together. That Peter Quill could lead them to greater things, and that they would form as just as a heroic team as the Avengers. Maybe they're not goody two-shoes like Captain America, but they still do good for the galaxy, for the greater good. It's a great film. You should check it out if you want to laugh your ass off. Great characters, great little Easter eggs if you've read any Guardians of the Galaxy comic books or just comic books in general. It's fantastic. It's a great space opera. Check it out. I gave it a 9.2 out of 10. It's a great, amazing movie. The final 2 movies here in the entire MCU are Age of Ultron, that came out in 2015. Again, coming back, Joss Whedon taking the helm of the movie, taking the reins. And this sequel lacks. I mean, it definitely lacks. It's not as great as the Avengers. Yes, that is a high standard to live up to, but it kind of mashes too many storylines into one movie, kind of spoon-feeding you, hey, here's a teaser for this upcoming movie. And this one, Thor Ragnarok teased with a horrible, not expanded, kind of Thor pool scene that was out of the random. And then having kind of a Black Panther cameo there, seeing Andy Serkis playing a great Ulysses Claw. It was not needed in this movie to go to Wakanda or any of that other stuff. Then introducing Ultron, a little bit rushed. You understand in a 2.5-hour movie, you're trying to get him there, but I think they wasted some of James Spader in this movie. You also have to give the Vision in this movie. You have to expand to the twins and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. And they're all handled well. The Vision's handled great. Him picking up the hammer is such an iconic moment. But there's kind of a rushness to it and up and downs of this movie. The Hulk, Black Widow, Bruce Banner storyline does not work for me at all. Their love story. Didn't like it. There's kind of jokes that shouldn't have been told by Ultron. I'm a massive Ultron fan. I lost my mind when they announced that this movie was coming out. And I still liked it, still loved it after the first trailer, but still, the party scene, all that stuff, one of the best scenes in the MCU. But he cracks a little too many jokes for me. Yes, he says some great dark lines that I can quote and I love them. But saying jokes like the omelet and everything else were not needed. I understand he's taking on Tony's personality, but I didn't like them. Even other jokes of I hope you and Banner are not hiding the zucchini. All that other stuff, stupid. It wasn't needed. Yeah, there's great fight scenes in it, but I thought you could have did more with Ultron in the final fight scene. I don't think he was given anything to do. He's instantly kind of defeated by 3 members, and then Hulk, of course, has to hit him at the end, and then hits him again, and after he kills Quicksilver, which was odd that he couldn't save himself, after they make you think Hawkeye's going to die. And then, yeah, it's a great scene of, Scarlet Witch ripping out Ultron's heart and all that stuff, but was that Hawkeye storyline of the farm and all that stuff really needed just to redeem, Whedon and Hawkeye from the 2012 movie? No. Yeah, there's a scene here or there that's good, but overall, it's not good. I like the dreams that Scarlet Witch gives them, particularly the Black Widow dream. I think it's the best. Still gives me chills seeing her roll down the hallway on the gurney and those girls with no mouths. It creeps me out even just talking about it now. But kind of Cap's was mediocre. Thor's, his dream sequence, that nightmare that she made him see was just a hint of Thor Ragnarok. It wasn't great for me. There's ups and downs of this movie. They should have done way more with Ultron. I would have rewrote so much of this movie. But overall, it's still a decent movie. It's still a lot of fun. It's still Avengers. There's just a little too many jokes. This should have been a darker movie, a darker sequel, and I think it could have really hit with fans. That's why I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, because it has a lot of problems. I still really like the movie, but it needs a lot of improvements. And the final movie here in the MCU and in Phase 2 so far that we've gotten is AntMan. Also came out about 2 months later. Obviously was directed by Edgar Wright, and then he had kind of creative differences. He split some moral, in steps Peyton Reed, and me and other people had reservations about could he nail this movie, could this movie be good, could Paul Rudd carry a franchise, and all the boxes are checked. This movie's hilarious. It's a great heist film. Even the villain played by Corey Stoll playing Yellow Jacket, it works for me. I know a lot of people didn't like him. I liked how he was just crazy from the beginning. I think he has one of the best fight scenes in the MCU in this film of him in Scott Lang's daughter's room, Cassidy, and them kind of fighting on the train set and, hey, pick on someone your own side. It's a dun dun dun, and the music hits, and they fight and everything. And just the comedy of him hitting Thomas the Tank Engine, of him hitting the ant and making everything bigger. Absolutely fantastic. I thought they wouldn't focus as much on the heist part, and they did. They nailed it. It's a major part of the movie. Yes, it's kind of an origin story of him learning about his powers, but he learns it through Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas, who would have thought, just like Robert Redford, that he's in the MCU. He plays a great part. He commits to the role. Evangeline Lilly, I think, is really good as Hope Van Dyne. That their whole dynamic of having tension over over her not knowing what happened to the mother, and then, him explaining it, and then, Scott ruining it and saying, I ruined the moment, didn't I, and all that other stuff. It was a great, great movie. I really liked even T.I. and Michael Pena work in this movie as kind of his buddies there. All the elements work for me. Yes, it's not a masterpiece as Winter Soldier. Yeah, it has a little awkward things that I would have done, wrong, or maybe, done different that I think are done wrong, or there's slow parts here and there. But overall, it's a great, hilarious movie, a great heist film, a great introduction to a character that a lot of people don't know about, that they made cool, and that's why I'm giving this movie an 8.5 out of 10. So there you go, guys. That is kind of my thoughts here on ranking the MCU. If you haven't been sticking with me, I will put all the ranks here, but I first want to just quickly go into the after credit scenes and rank them. I'm going to go from worst to first here, so kind of starting with Iron Man 3, wasn't a huge fan of the end credit scene, one end credit scene of him kind of talking to Bruce about, he's not that kind of doctor, and that the whole story he was telling Bruce, wasn't a huge fan of it. It's funny here or there, but it ain't great. Going next to Avengers Age of Ultron, one credit scene, kind of just Thanos putting on the glove, saying, fine, I'll do it myself. Alright, yeah, it's great, you're doing it yourself now, Thanos, but for waiting for an after credit scene, wasn't that great, didn't really like it. It goes in the second worst for me of the MCU. Thor, at the end of Thor, you kind of had the scene of seeing that Loki actually is not dead. He's kind of reflecting in the glass, and oh, that's interesting when Nick Fury's showing Dr. Selvig the Tesseract. Yeah, it's a cool little tease, but I think even at that time, you knew Tom Hiddleston was going to be in the Avengers. It's a cool little tease, but it's like, we could have did more with this scene. Wasn't a huge fan, huge fan of the scene. That's why it goes at number 10 for me. At number 9, is Guardians of the Galaxy. I know a lot of people probably would have put this as their worst. I actually thought it, I liked it. It's Howard the Duck in this. If you've seen the atrocious, I think it's the 80s movie, if you want to have some, drinks and fun with your friends, go and check that movie out. It's absolutely terrible. For me, though, it was fun to see him there as looking more like the character. CGI'd, seeing Cosmo the dog in there, seeing, the Collector. Really like that scene. It was a nice, cool little tease. I really did like it. It fits in here at number 9 for me. At number 8, is Thor: Dark World. Yeah, the movie ain't great, but still, this is a good after credit scene of seeing Sif, and I think it was Volstagg, go and give the ether to the Collector. You kind of see kind of the Easter eggs there and see that, hey, maybe he has a cocoon that could be Adam Warlock in his chambers. Very cool to see there. And then you could also see that he's collecting the Infinity Gems. He's not really a good person as well. He has evil intentions. I did like it. It goes in at number 9. At number 8. At 7 is The Incredible Hulk. The after credit scene of this is kind of really cool for me. It personally to me was crazy. I lost my shit. Yeah, it was cool to see the Iron Man one, but to see Tony talking to Thunderbolt Ross and just them having that scene of, hey, maybe we're putting a team together and everything else. Absolutely great. Loved it. That's why it fits in at number 7. For me, the number 6 after credit scene is Iron Man 2. It's a solid, it's a solid after credit scene. I really did enjoy it. Obviously, if you don't know, the Iron Man 2 scene was when kind of Coulson, who's kind of the thread through this entire Phase 1 MCU before he dies in the Avengers, he calls up and he says, we found it. And it's Thor's hammer. And you wonder, how did it get here in the middle of the desert, which ended up being New Mexico, and you see that in the Thor film. It's really great. Really great. It really works. It's a nice hint at, hey, this is what's to come, and I did enjoy it. That's why it fits in at the number 6 spot. At the number 5 spot is Captain America, the First Avenger. The after credit scene is basically a trailer to the first Avengers movie, but seeing Cap being able to see that, and lucky enough, that he went to that one ball game, know that it's not 1945. He wakes up, breaks out, and then Nick Fury goes, hey, at ease, soldier. Hey, you've been asleep, Cap, for almost 70 years, and just having that powerful line of, like, you gonna be alright? Yeah, I had a date, and just that reference back to Peggy, great to show that the relationship that they're kind of just, they never could have, because they were, they ended up being from different time periods because of Cap being able to sleep, but absolutely great scene, gets you pumped up for the Avengers. Really, really did like it. And then you kind of have, the hints in the trailer up to the Avengers. It's enjoyable. It pumps you up. I really did enjoy it. That's why it goes in at number 5. And number 4 is Ant-Man. It has 2 after credit scenes. And the first one being a great scene of seeing Hope Van Dyne saying, hey, it's about time, and seeing the Wasp suit, and that she's going to become that in the next movie, in the next sequel, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Absolutely love that. It was awesome to see Wasp, one of my favorite characters. If you don't know anything about her, check out the Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes series. I think it's still on Netflix. She's a great character in there. Really like her. That was awesome to see. And then see the second one, which was basically, I'll find out tomorrow, but was a scene right out of Captain America Civil War, of them having Bucky locked up there and saying, hey, Sam Wilson saying, hey, I know a guy, and they're going to call in Ant-Man, and seeing that does Buck remember anything about Steve, and that they can't talk to Tony because of the Accords, and now we know that it's the Sokovia Accords, which are equivalent to the Superhero Registration Act. Great scene, very ominous, loved it, fit here, and that's why it goes in at the number 4 slot for after credits. At number 3, I would say, is Iron Man, the first Iron Man. The after credit scene obviously is one of the most iconic moments where he senses kind of a break-in, Tony says, asks Jarvis what's going on, and then Nick Fury's in his house and says, hey, you think you're the only hero in the world? I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. I lost my shit when I first seen that. It's absolutely amazing. It's what put the MCU together. It's a great scene still to this day, still gives me chills, and that's why it goes in at number 3. At number 2, you basically had 2 after credit scenes. Yeah, you had the shawarma scene, which was really funny. I really did enjoy it. But the big one for me, I'm a huge Thanos fan. It was so crazy to no one else, any of my friends that I was with knew who that was, and I knew that it was the Mad Titan. And for him to turn around and just even smile, but, for the others to say, to challenge them is to court death, right? And it's not only to court death because he likes killing people, but to court death, the literal entity, the woman that he loves. Absolutely awesome. Loved it. Still, that gives me chills. Loved it. And that's why it goes in at number 2. And the number 1 after credit scene, if you haven't figured it out, here is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. It has 2 after credit scenes. You have the great scene of Strucker in kind of an underground fortress talking to another Hydra guy. It's revealed that he has Loki's scepter, and then you see Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and that it's an age of miracles, and just seeing her, you know, smash the glass with kind of the boxes and him kind of run around, absolutely awesome scene. And then an underrated scene, seeing Bucky kind of discover himself and being at the museum and the music, you know, just ramping up as he's trying to discover himself more. It's a very impactful, emotional scene for me. I love it, and that's why it is. Those two scenes make Captain America, the Winter Soldier, have the best, the #1 after credit scenes in the MCU so far. Alright guys, and that is my rankings here on Road to Civil War, ranking the MCU. Obviously, if you have not been keeping score at home, I will rank all of the movies here. I will go from worst to first. I'll just say them quickly now. I would say Thor: The Dark World at a 3.8, Iron Man 2 at 5, Incredible Hulk at 6, Thor at 7, Iron Man 3 at a 7, Captain America: The First Avenger at 8, Avengers: Age of Ultron at 7, Ant-Man at 8.5, Iron Man at 9, Guardians of the Galaxy at 9.2, Marvel's The Avengers at 9.6, and then Captain America: The Winter Soldier at 9.8. Now you're going to notice at home that, hey, maybe all the scores here don't actually go in order from worst to first or lowest to highest. Yes, there is a little bit of a difference here around the Captain America: The First Avenger slot at 7 and Avengers: Age of Ultron at 6. And the reason why I listed that is because The First Avenger is a better movie in my opinion, but in significance, and just because it's all the Avengers together and the significance to me, I had to rank Avengers: Age of Ultron ahead of it, even though I think it's a better made film than Captain America: The First Avenger. But that's why that is like that. It's kind of just not only how good the movies are, but the significance they are to the MCU and to me, and that's why they are ordered like that. But that is my listings here, guys, for the MCU. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Please, 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 the main part of this video is for you to comment below. Give me your list on after credit scenes on the movies. Give me your scores. What did you think of mine? Obviously, have a respectful conversation down below, not only for me, but with other people, and just give a dissenting opinion if you don't agree with something, but, you know, don't attack anyone in the comments. There's no reason for that. We could all be a whole bunch of nerds here and enjoy our movies on our lead up to Civil War, our road to Civil War, but I really want to hear your thoughts on what you liked, what you didn't like about each individual movie, performances, costume designs, plots, sets, the scopes of the movie, the backgrounds of where they were filmed, anything you like about these movies, let me know down below. Please give me your lists. I would love to hear them. If you agree or don't agree with my list, let me know what changes you kind of would make in it, and let me know your predictions. Obviously, if you've seen Captain America: Civil War, no spoilers down below. Or if it's going to be spoilers, just write spoilers, then a whole bunch of spaces so someone has to click read more to actually see the spoilers. Don't spoil that down below. But if you haven't seen the movie like me, I'm seeing it tomorrow. Give your predictions of what you think is to come on the movie. Do you think it's going to be amazing? Do you think we're going to see a death? Let me know all that stuff down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends, and be so kind. And thank you guys for watching. Until maybe the next movie review. And maybe if you guys like this, I'll do more top 5, top 10 lists in the future. But if you watched this whole video, thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And let's have a great discussion down below. But until next time, thanks for watching.